Hi, I'm Jeff Beck. I'm in the Masters right now. Why don't you come by and check us out? Well, the music itself is pretty sort of now and tomorrow rather than retro, but it was the way it was recorded, I think, that was new to me, which was total high-tech, you know. I say high-tech, but it was minimalist high-tech. This guy, Andy Wright, who's a genius with the keypad, would take what I would play over a drum groove and really pick out all the fancy bits, weed out all the rubbish, and then just keep the good bit. And that's how the album was really born, really. If it enables somebody to go on a righteous path of music, then surely it's a good thing. The only thing is the control of the flood of it is what's wrong, what needs to be looked at. And otherwise, people will tend to think that really, really trashy, awful music is music. If they're not exposed to anything else, then that's bad. But I come from a whole different era, long before all this stuff was about. So I have to tread very carefully and not to look as if we're a push-button brigade, which we're not at all. My band are a very highly skilled player, and we wouldn't trade that for the world. The only way I can answer that is by saying if we're going to generate an old number or revamp an old number, then I listen to the original with the band. This is quite funny because the chops are really antique now. They're really compared to what I can do now. But there's a certain amusing charm about it that I find. But some of it is, the thing that strikes me is not so much my playing, but what it was. What the tune was or the riff that went underneath it. I can't bear to listen to myself, anyways. Some people say not doing Woodstock was pretty dumb. But I say that, who knows, it felt at the time as if I had done it, that would have been me in a time capsule, on screen, finished. Bye-bye, done. And, if we screwed up, we're on film screwing up. If we're massively successful, that was the pinnacle of the career. I think, I'm not going to mention names, but not many people survived Woodstock today, that was pretty dumb. I think not taking myself seriously enough, probably, generally speaking. Not realising that I could actually affect someone's life quite deeply, You only tell them a little snippet of what you're about, and they blow that up. They're all like a bunch of tabloid newspaper reporters. They make up stories and gossip, and that's what they always will do. And the papers are there to capitalise on that. But, I'm not going to sit here and deny my faults. Of course I got faults. Many, many faults. It's just how you twist them around to your advantage, isn't it? A combination of sensible eating, I suppose. Having really, really sharp-witted friends. They play a hell of a part too. Just a handful of really sharp, intelligent friends, that have got heart. They're genuine people. I think that's what everybody should have, really. Just a couple of those, it would do. And just watching and listening and looking and keeping yourself generally in trim. The hot rod thing is a big part of it, because I need to do something. I won't sit and do nothing. And even if I just go up to I've got a fully equipped shop and start, there's always something to do, and it's really good healthy thing to do. To get hungry before one eats is a good secret, and really earn the food rather than just plonk it down your mouth. We can all do that very easily, but the price is high if you don't watch it. But other than that, I can't really stay away from women, I suppose. I'm very fond of that record because It was the result, the end product of about a year and a half on the road playing really toilets and small clubs, and we just went in and recorded it 4 days. That's just what I remember. The only thing is I'd like to remix it someday. That was an emergency album. That was a midway through a tour when I walked out of this tour because things weren't going right. We lost a little bit of the spark that the previous tour had, and the band was getting very childish and kind of, especially Rod, was acting like a schoolgirl. So I thought, right, we either carry on like adults, or we go back and make a record. And I think the vote was make the record. And but we didn't have any material, so that was the best we could come up with. Nice cover though, isn't it? Funnily enough, I don't really think of me as being on that record. I was recovering from a terrible blow, from an accident, and any loud noise was pretty tough, and that reminds me of that accident, that record. That was a bit more fun because I could seem to be like snap my fingers and get what I wanted, and I just rang up Steve Cropper, and the next thing we're on the plane over there and recorded in Memphis, but we didn't go to Stax, the old movie house. We went in this brand new studio, and I was really disappointed. That we needed material, I think it's painfully clear. But the playing and the bass player, the keyboard, Cozy, it was amazing. It was like having a sort of a miniature heavy Motown rock band behind you, and that's what we wanted. But we didn't really have the material. We needed to send around and send out for some material. That was pretty electric, and those two guys are complete maniacs, the least they were. I'm not sure what they're playing like now, but to have the power at your disposal with just two other guys is just amazing. Sound like 8 people. They sang as well, to 2-part harmonies, which filled out the sound a lot. I didn't really think much of it when we were doing it. I thought it was probably a middle-of-the-road mistake with all the strings and stuff on it, but when Epic heard it, that there was an amazing red carpet that went out from my house to New York, and I went with it. I just put the band together. We had a lot of fun with that. Well, I wanted to take George all the way with this album, but he somehow, I was too vague. It was easy to pinpoint what I wanted, and now the record's done, but halfway through a project, I was having trouble communicating with George because I wanted a heavy version of Spectrum. There was an album by Billy Cobham, and I just fell in love with that ultra heavy groove stuff that was going somewhere other than just, chug-a-lug rock, you know what I mean? And it had real explicit bass lines and fantastic areas for soloing. And the Mahavishnu thing was very much in my mind at that time. So I wanted to do my version of that with all those elements in it. And George, I don't think quite got the picture, but I finished off mixing with Jan Hammer, and it sort of became more or less what I wanted, even though it was a roundabout way of doing it. But I think that the record company wanted some product, and they couldn't see it ever materialising if we hadn't actually got anything on the drawing board. So they went, right, stick a mic up, we'll get an album out of you live. Which was okay because we played much wilder live than ever in the studio. There's no comparison. So that was quite fun. We did 4 days recording at 4 different locations. Or was it 3? I think Reading, California, New York, a couple of other places. So we really didn't know which, because we were recording 4 separate concerts, we weren't really conscious. We weren't too worried about making mistakes. If you were doing just the one night, then you tend to get jittery. But yeah, it was. I think some really good playing. Fond memories, because Simon Phillips joined my band then. He was great, really, really great. Hungry young drummer, with a great sense of time, and he learnt the tune so that if we all screwed up, at least he was reliable, and he learnt all the parts. And then Tony Hymas, who has been a great support to me over the years. When he does a corker, it's really good, good tune. That was probably a regret, that one. Apart from the 2 numbers on it that I like, the rest of it was Nile Rodgers' effort, I misjudged the whole project because the the record company they really wanted product, big time, and that was right in the middle of our one finger friends, the battery people. So I couldn't really see any form of music that would attract the players I wanted, or have any sort of long legs in terms of, being a really worthwhile long-term project. So they put me with Niall, and I must say that I was caught up in a whole whirlwind of activity in New York, because he was doing Madonna and then Duran Duran and all that, and so I didn't really feel that we got a fair crack on this one, material-wise. But the two that weren't anything to do with Niall were the ones that got recognised, which was Escape and People Get Ready. That was my whole project, really, because I got Tony to agree to do it. He wanted to know where the material was coming from. I said, we're going to write it. We'll get Terry Bozzio over, who's amazing. And we did write the material. I mean, most of it was co-written. And it was a great time for us, but unfortunately we had a cheap rate studio that we rented off Jimmy Page. And that kept us it became like a club, a resident. So a lot of missed opportunities, but there's some really, really nice things on it. So the keyboard sounds are outrageous on it. Well, that was a brainchild of a guy called Greg Geller, who's always been a great sort of support to me. And because of that, I'd know probably the only reason that I would have agreed to anybody else, I'd have binned the idea. And I thought, well, okay, if he sees an eye view of a fan that would want that, then fine, I had no problem with it, except for Trouble in Mind on there, which is like some old photo, so that, like when you're naked on a rug at 1 month old, and you show everybody. I discovered this band called the Playboys, who were such amazing, retro, rockabilly band, but they were more than that. They did their own brand of stylized 40s bebop rock, which is, I love that. And I just happened to have a friend that linked us together, but we couldn't find any common ground. I didn't want to play on their records because they had a perfectly great guitar player there anyway. So I said, what about Vincent stuff? And I started playing some really obscure Vincent stuff, and they knew it, bang, straight away. So we made a date, and in a week we had that cut. I think it took about 2 weeks to master it and mix it. There was a double release that they put the two together, the Blue Gene Vincent tribute record, the Blue Caps tribute record, went out in tandem with that to make a legitimate release, but it was just really a filler, really, I think. There was a 4-part series, TV special for English television made by an Australian. Brilliant. It was a low-budget thing, but it was amazing. It was about the career of a photographer that got caught up in the war in Vietnam and got bombed and his head blown off and stuck back on, and he's still alive now. And I was so touched by it, I agreed to do the music for it, and that won a Grammy. That's the thing that won a Grammy, not the Gene Vincent thing. So that was a big challenge. That was a bit of a nightmare. That was the Pressure album, because it was the biggie. That was the one that was supposed to get me sorted out and let them know what's going on. And there was lack of focus on the handling of the project. And so Tony Hymas was brought in to save the day, and he didn't like where I was going with techno, He didn't really think that was the right thing to do. But when he heard what we were about to do, he sort of kind of reluctantly got involved. So we wasted a hell of a lot of money on the first attempt. And it wasn't until I got a friend involved who could program stuff, who actually saved it from the bin. And, so I don't have too many fond memories of that either. That was more like it, and that's really is my first album, really, I suppose. It is. It's a pure Beck album because it's all me and doing what I want to do. And it's so bare bones simple, It's like a first building block of another move.